Hi, young readers. Thanks again for stopping by for a reading of Chapter 2 of Maxzyne's latest adventure, Maxzyne and the Old Horse Theater. Today we're on Chapter 2, and to recap just a bit, Maxzyne was on her way to the principal's office because she got caught doodling in class, not very attractive photo or sketch of her music teacher, and was sent to Principal Farwell's office. On the way to the office, she looked out the exit door and saw a carriage horse in distress and bolted out the door. So let's go and see what happens next. Chapter 2, Caesar. "Whoa!" she shouts, running toward the frightened animal. The horse turns in her direction, trying to see past the dark blinders near his eyes. She skids on the icy sidewalk, barely catching her balance with a one-legged yoga move. "Whoa! Where's your driver?" Her backpack bangs on her hip, and she quickly loops the second strap over her shoulder to secure it. The horse stops mid-lunge, his flattened ears rising. His muscular chest heaves. He snorts and peers at her curiously. She takes a chance and steps near enough to peek over the edge of the pearly carriage trapped by the wheel. It is empty except for a nubby gray blanket and black silk top hat tossed on the floor. Weird, huh? She moves toward the front and traces a brass plaque with cold fingers. It reads Caesar in a swirling script. About to burst with curiosity, she steps near the horse's flank and leans closer so he can see her. "Caesar, what's wrong? Where's your driver? Why are you in such a rush?" The horse pricks his ears in her direction. One large brown eye rolls, half hidden behind the smooth leather blinder. He turns his great head to take a good look at her. His long nose quivers, flecked with foam, and his sweaty flanks heave. He bobs his head, snorting clouds of steam in the cold air. "Good boy," she croons, daring to touch his soft black cheek. The horse whinnies, tossing his mane as he paws the ground with one hoof. He tries to lunge again, but it is a half-hearted heave forward. The wheel stays firmly trapped in the bike rack. Okay, I get it." She steps backward, giving him space. "I bet you want me to fix that carriage wheel, don't you?" Careful to keep some distance between her and the horse's powerful legs, Maxzyne runs to the trapped carriage wheel. "Okay, Caesar," she calls out. "Just relax. Maybe I can roll it out." The horse cocks his head, seeming to consider her request. Finally, he gives a great sigh. Billowing clouds of moisture rise from his snout. He ducks his head again and impatiently paws the sidewalk with one worn hoof. Then he lunges forward again. Maxzyne leans hard against the high rear wheel. Wedged tight, it doesn't budge. "Hey, chillax! I need some slack here." The horse jerks his head back and whinnies in frustration. "If only I could make him understand me," she frets. Despite her request, the desperate horse lunges forward again. The high-pitched squeal of scraping metal hurts her ears. She turns to see that the trapped wheel is now twisted at an awkward angle within a slot of the bike rack. An icy mist is released from a low cloud as it rolls overhead. Maxzyne shivers as a gust of wind whips her dark layers of braids into a crazy halo around her head. She raises a slim brown hand, pulling the woven strands away from her face. Too late, one plastic barrette from a flyaway braid smacks her left cheek. "Ow!" she shrieks. With her free hand, she shields her eyes from the gust and the whipping strand with its deadly barrette. The wind rises and she looks skyward. A strange thrumming noise comes from the direction of the school's main entrance. She squints at the American flag as it snaps in the northern breeze. The ropes strain and thrash against the tall pole where it stands guard near the main entrance. Distracted, she almost misses the sudden movement inside the mysterious coach. She blinks 3 times just to be sure the mist and cold air are not making her imagine things. Is that really the cool top hat I saw on the carriage floor? She watches the elegant accessory sail high on the chilly breeze. Maxzyne is spellbound when it sweeps near her just out of reach. For several seconds, the lustrous fabric glimmers as it hovers, almost teasing her. Flyaway braids swing loose around her face as she lunges to grab the tempting object. Too late, the hat is swept just out of reach by the invisible fingers of gusting air. There's something weird going on here. Her eyelashes flutter in surprise to see her face reflected in the glossy black silk as the hat spins several times in front of her. Then, as quickly as it arrived, the wind fades. There is an eerie silence as the wandering hat drifts toward the horse. With a graceful flourish, it drops to the asphalt, landing just behind Caesar's front hooves. Whoa, Caesar, what's up with that hat? She croaks, her breath frosting in the air. The horse turns and looks at her. Maxzyne feels the hair on her scalp rise as a flash of electricity races down the back of her neck. Somehow she understands that she is meant to retrieve the curious object. She steps forward and kneels to grab the hat by its brim. As she scoops it up, she has the curious feeling of being watched. A quick glance in Caesar's direction confirms it. His dark head is cocked to the right, with one soft brown eye trained on her. As she stands, he lifts his head, his eye following her. With a nod of approval, he snorts when she pushes the hat securely down over her braids. "Hey, check me out," she brags silently. "I'm going places in this awesome hat." She preens and adjusts her braids under the brim. Now, if only she had a mirror. She tilts the high hat just over her right ear. A gray speckled feather is tucked in the charcoal hatband where the brim meets the crown, giving it a jaunty dash of style. It's a little too big, even with all her braids, but it's still easy to imagine herself as the carriage mistress. What fun must it be to give people a tour of the city every day? Wearing this hat, she feels positively grand. Her imagination churns. That's her pointing out the Hancock Building, Millennium Park, and all her favorite cupcake and candy shops. Tourists wouldn't even have to pay her real money, just feed her double Dutch cocoa cupcakes. "Caesar, do you like cupcakes?" she asked, not really expecting a response to such a silly question. The horse gives a high-pitched whinny and slides his head from side to side, ending with a brief shake of his withers. Maxzyne nearly laughs out loud. This crazy horse just shook his head and practically shrugged his shoulders at the absurdity of her cupcake question. Caesar whinnies his impatience, shifting restlessly. She straightens her shoulders, suddenly paying attention. "Did you say something?" she asks the horse, but then feels silly. Of course not. Duh! Horses can't talk. Her mouth drops open in surprise when the horse suddenly bobs his head once. "Huh? Was that a yes?" Caesar drops his head again, this time giving a snort for emphasis. Maxzyne is so startled that she steps backward, pushing the brim of the silk hat out of her eyes. Is this horse talking for real? She stares at him for several seconds before throwing her hands up in the air. "Well, there's one thing we both understand. You need help getting that wheel loose, right?" The horse rumbles a low neigh in response. His great head nods in agreement, and he impatiently taps his right hoof on the asphalt. "I hear what you're saying, loud and clear." She shrugs and rolls her eyes. Somehow she accepts that she and the horse seem able to communicate. And what you're really saying is, just do it already. Caesar taps his hoof again, and Maxzyne nearly laughs out loud. Geez, next you'll be reading my mind. Give me a sec, huh? I'm just getting the hang of things, you know. Caesar gives a loud sigh again, nodding his head. She starts to remove the hat from her head, but suddenly stops. This hat must be a secret decoder or something. I better hang on to it. The horse neighs in agreement. She tucks a stray braid behind her ear and tilts the hat brim higher on her forehead. Now she can see better. It wobbles a bit, but if she keeps her braids tucked inside, it keeps the hat from falling off. Come on then, I need your help this time. She strides back to the wheel trapped in the bike rack, one knee on the sidewalk. After a quick blow on her hands to warm them, she pushes with all her strength. With a final, very unladylike grunt that streams from her open mouth, she slowly straightens the twisted wheel on its axle. She rubs her cold fingers together and then flashes a victory sign at the horse. He bobs his head as if congratulating her. She gives him a half smile and feels a warm flush of pride until the horse neighs impatiently. Hold your horses, she answers with a giggle. She stands, hands dusting off the knees of her khaki pants. Seconds later, she points at the horse. Caesar, it's up to you now. Back up and give me some slack. With both hands, she motions for him to move backward and is both surprised and thrilled when the horse takes one step back. Yeah, that's it, she encourages, feeling a bit like Dr. Dolittle talking to animals. Now come this way. Come on, you got it. Just a smidge more, she wheedles. Amazingly, the horse takes another step backward. She claps and gives him a huge smile. Then, with both hands on the tall, spindly wheel, she pushes hard. The metal is cold and she grunts louder than ever, trying to move it. The top hat tumbles down over her eyes as she lurches forward, thrilled when the trapped wheel slides out. She gives the silk hat an impatient shove back on her forehead, breathing hard. Working together, she and the horse have somehow managed to free the wheel from the bike rack. For a moment, even the horse looks surprised. Maxzyne jumps to her feet, pleased by their success. Way to go! We did it, Caesar! See that? You're free now. She stops jumping and blows on her frozen hands again. This time the horse just looks at her. Well, go on. What are you waiting for? You can go home now. You're free, see? Find your driver. He must be worried. She shivers and claps her hands at the horse. He just rolls his regal head her way, one brown eye blinking and peering at her from beneath the blinder. What? You're not talking now? What's up with that? She frowns, stepping closer. Hey, you're not lost, are you? Maxzyne reaches high, daring to stroke his proud neck. This time he allows her fingers to trail across his windswept mane. Don't you want to get home? She croons. There must be a nice warm barn with lots of hay to eat somewhere, right? His ears prick at her again. That's a word you understand, isn't it? H-A-Y, hay. The horse nods his head and whinnies loudly. Maxzyne continues stroking his tangled mane, thinking out loud. So, if someone's looking for you and... She pauses, thinking hard as she winds a braid back under the brim of her hat. Wait a minute. I found you, didn't I? The horse nods again, the leather bridle with its silver trim tinkling. Maxzyne rocks back and forth on her flat suede sneakers, a huge smile crossing her face. Sure did, so I'll just find your owner. Won't he be glad I got you unstuck? Grateful even. Her eyes slide past the carriage and down the deserted street. I mean, I could really use some extra credit with the grown-ups right now. She glances back at the blank windows of the school cafeteria. Maybe it's just luck, but it seems no one has seen her outside yet. Relieved, she takes a deep breath. Okay, Caesar, maybe you and I can help each other, huh? The ebony horse throws back his head as if in agreement. The mane on his proud neck ripples in a sudden gust of wind. Caught off guard, Maxzyne jumps backward to the sidewalk. Hey, buddy, warn me if you're going to make a move like that. She throws her arms up and the horse neighs. With a shrug, she clamps the hat down tighter on her head. Just saying. Her teeth chatter with cold and her lips feel like sandpaper. She bounces on her toes and rubs her arms for warmth. That's when she remembers the gray blanket. The graceful white carriage with its plush tufted seat and shiny brass light sconces are just a step away. The next damp gust of wind convinces her to climb up. Seconds later, she is grateful to be wrapped in the blanket's musty cocoon. She hugs the rough wool tightly around her body and sits down on the high driver's seat. Once the heat slowly returns to her hands and face, it isn't long until her gaze is drawn back to the school building. What now? Dry leaves rustle and scrape against the sidewalk curb in the chilly breeze. She huddles under the blanket, trying to decide. As if making up her mind for her, Caesar gives a loud snort and leans forward, pulling the carriage down the street. 20 yards behind the carriage, a car turns the corner at the intersection and glides past. Maxzyne emerges from the blanket and waves at the last second, remembering to raise the brim of the old-fashioned hat. She gives it a jaunty sweep, just like she's seen the carriage drivers do on Michigan Avenue. The car driver sees her and responds with 2 quick honks. She is thrilled, but the noise spooks Caesar. With a fierce whinny, the horse lunges forward and strains against the harness. There is a crash of hooves on asphalt as the horse breaks into a desperate gallop. Up ahead and already half a block away, the car turns a corner and disappears from view. Surprised by Caesar's reaction, Maxzyne is thrown back against the driver's seat, the silk hat toppling into the back seat. She ditches the blanket and scrambles into the safety of the rear passenger seat. Whoa, Caesar, whoa, she screeches. The carriage lurches from the sidewalk and into the street. Ignoring her shrieks, the horse picks up the pace. Worse, it's as if her screams only make the animal move faster. So much for Dr. Dolittle. The top hat bounces to the carriage floor. Terrified, Maxzyne quickly follows. With a gasp, she drops to her knees. Unable to keep her balance, she finally sits on the floor, holding on for dear life. The coach clatters down the deserted street, thrown off balance by the slightly bent rear wheel. As it hurtles away from the familiar school grounds, she hears a faint metallic ringing over the thunder of Caesar's pounding hooves. Yikes! Could it be? She stays seated on the carriage floor, afraid to turn around and look back. There is no mistaking the shrill clanging of her middle school's bell. 5th period. If I live through this, I am so doomed. The end of chapter 2. So let's go to the back of the book for a minute and see if there are some discussion questions here. So the first one is, why didn't Maxzyne go straight to the principal's office? Was her decision to go outside without telling anyone a smart choice? What other options did she have? What does she encourage Caesar to do after she frees the carriage wheel from the bike rack? Why does she climb into the carriage? Do you think she realized there was the possibility that the horse would run down the street away from the school? So those are just a couple questions about chapter 2 for you to think about. And I hope you join me again for chapter 3 and that you enjoyed today's chapter. If you have any questions about me or Maxzyne or writing and reading, I encourage you to send me an email on the website www.maxzyne.com, and of course you know how to spell her name, Maxzyne, and of course with your parents' permission. So until next time, keep reading.